everyone. I just wanted to show you my outside office here. This is where I'm grading your papers. Pretty cool, yeah? So I just wanted to say a couple things about the papers as I'm grading here. So you guys are you're ready to just put all these assignments together. As I mentioned in the beginning, they should form your paper. You can start with your identifying the problem assignment, and that should become your introduction. Now you've probably changed. It's probably changed since you did your research, so you might want to go ahead and change the introduction. You might want to use the introduction that you used in Resource 1 or Resource 2 and 3, or a combination of all of them. Then you're going to add Resource 1 to your paper. And what is Resource 1? You might want to use that as part of your Resource 2 and 3, which will fill the body of your paper. You might want to use it as part of your introduction. So if Resource 1 really helps to define your issue, define terms in your issue, lay out the problem, it could be a personal story, it could be someone else's experience, that can go into your introduction. It can go in here. It depends on how how you're going to edit and revise your paper. And that's really important, right? I mean, how you organize the paper is going to determine its effectiveness. So after that, you should be able to form a conclusion. I usually read all my paragraphs, and then next to my paragraphs, I put, what is this paragraph about? What is this paragraph about? What is this a paragraph about? And then your conclusion should be a little different than your introduction. So state what you're going to talk about. Maybe your thesis might be introduction. It could be later in the paper. Most teachers like it to be up front, but it might be later. The conclusion should be a little different. I mean, what's changed? If nothing else, you should restate it in different terms. Try not to be repetitive throughout your paper. Some of you have kind of restated things over and over again, so make sure to cut that out. Go back and edit and revise. Then finally, at the end, you should have your works cited. So the works cited should only contain the sources that you use in your paper. So in this paper, you're required at least 3. You can use many more. Many more are welcome. The limit for the paper, you have to write 2,000 words. It can be a lot longer than that if you choose to do so. So you would take that annotated bib, but if you didn't use, that was 5 sources. So if you didn't use 2 of those sources, take that out. Also take out the annotations. That's not part of the works cited. So that should pretty much form your paper. So if you want to, you can do just that. You can copy paste the identifying the problem, copy paste Resource 1, copy paste Resource 2 and 3, copy paste works cited, take out your annotations, read your paragraphs, and then decide, does it all relate? If these 3 sources are just too different, you might have to go and find more sources. Or it might be a matter of, working it and tweaking it to get it to make sense. You might find a different topic. You might need the subtitles. You might not. But anyways, if you have any questions, let me know. This should be fairly easy at this point. Many of you did such a good job on your Resource 2 and 3 that your paper's done. Don't change it if I said this was excellent and all that. Keep it the same. Expand on it. Fill in those gaps. Do the revisions. And just, introduction, conclusion. So make sure you're doing all of those things. Also, when you are writing a college paper, you're not really writing to me. You're writing this paper for the general public. So here's what I'm getting from some of you. No title for the paper. You just come in. I will be writing about Resource 1 and Resource 2 They are credible because blank. They are similar because blank. And, you know, you're doing this to fulfill the requirements of your paper. What's the problem with this? It's very boring, right? You just sat here and watched me go over it. So let's just go real quickly back to our Amy Shallot assignment. She has a great title, The Sleepover Question. Why is it a great title? It tells what's going to be in her paper. Think about it. If there was a list of articles, how would you attract your reader to know that what they're going to read about, but also to say, oh, that sounds interesting. Come up with a title. Come up with a good title. How does she start her paper? Not under my roof. That's the attitude most American parents have towards teenagers and their sex lives. Squeamishness and concern describes most parents. So she starts off sort of like using a dialogue that these parents that she's going to talk about might have, but she's doing it in a way that tells you her thesis. So it's a very creative way of stating her thesis. And as you discussed, this isn't an academic paper, but it is a research paper. She is doing research. And it did get published in the New York Times. So this is interesting. This is an interesting way of leading in. In her second paragraph, she asks a question. So you can simply start your whole paper with a question that presents your thesis. But do give us something up front that's interesting. You know, a lot of you will say, I am going to talk about resource one. Is it talking? Is talking what you're going to do? Talking is something I do when someone's in front of me. So in everything, try to think about specific word choice that really tells the reader what you're actually talking about. You are going to discuss. You are going to examine. You are going to compare. There's a lot you can do. And you don't tell us resource one and resource two about, state the name right there. What's the name of your resource? What is the main point of this resource? And many of you did exactly what I told you not to do in the King Wallace video lecture, which was to summarize resource one, summarize resource two, and then provide an analysis. So I was a little stumped by that because you guys did such a great job of the King Wallace post, but then you didn't seem to be able to pick out themes for your own paper, such as brotherhood, such as God, all those themes that we use in the King Wallace. And then you said something about what each of them had to say under that theme. And so your analysis should be under here, under here. If you cannot figure out a theme, go and read this paragraph that you wrote, resource one, and say, what is that paragraph about? That's your theme. And then if the themes do not have enough of a relationship that you can put both authors under there, or that you can't summarize them together and conclude something about your argument, then you might need to find another resource. But, you know, even if the first resource doesn't specifically address a different theme that you would have here, you can still speculate about what they might say about that theme. So I had one student did a very brilliant paper. They did global warming, and they talked about fracking, and they talked about coral bleaching. At first I said, that's not going to work, it's too broad. But they actually chose the theme of global warming and the economy and how it relates to Hawaii. And don't forget your Okinas if you're going to write about Hawaii. And West Virginia. So they were able to narrow these through this narrow topic of the economy, which is really the opposition to global warming. And they showed how Hawaii, West Virginians were losing their, coal jobs, but this was causing the, the tourist economy who come to Hawaii for the beautiful reefs and other things to disappear because of the global warming. So this was a very great way to do it. And it could be different things. It could be coal miners and Hawaii tourism. So that could be different things that you could have. Show you real quick one of my papers that I'm working on. It's still very much in the raw here. But I'm talking about hip hop and scholarship and how scholars distort the actual hip hop founders' message and views on hip hop. So here's my title, my theme, my subtitle: the teacher and the scholar, saviors, or it could just be the teacher and the scholar. I'm talking about KRS-One, who is a hip hop MC or rapper, and a scholar of hip hop. So instead of stating resource one, and I'm writing about resource one, no, you say it's a family affair. This is the article. What's the author's name? It's British scholar Paul Gilroy. So you don't need to tell me about the credibility. You don't need to spend a whole paragraph telling me the name of the article. It's right there. There's the name of the scholar. That's what he is. He's a scholar. He's a British scholar. And that's the name of the article. What does he do? He critiques. He doesn't talk about KRS-One. He critiques KRS-One's view of the nation as a type of racial siblinghood that emerged from. So then I have my citation. Then I put a quote down here. When you have more than 4 lines, you're going to indent your quote, and you don't have a period at the end. You have a period here, and no need the quotations because it's already indented. So it would be like this. But if I was up here, then you can see the period comes after the parentheses. So right here. Now going further down, here I'm comparing, I'm doing the analysis, I'm doing the opposition. But anyone who is privy to his work understands that the nation is multicultural and multinational, as is evident from the aforementioned quote in his 2009 manifesto, The Gospel of Hip Hop. So that's KRS-One's book. So I'm comparing KRS-One's book to Gilroy's article. I'm telling you what that is. It's a manifesto. So what is your article? Then I have one of his song lyrics down here. So that's just an example. Moving over here to our citations. There's a link to this page on your schedule in one of your assignments. So, author, period, title, container, comma. So yes, this is totally tedious and, in my opinion, sort of anal. I really could care less whether you have a comma here or a period, but some teachers will. So just know that, for them it's important. I encourage people to use the generators. So, you can just put in your book or your journal and it'll come out with the citation, but then you need to look it over, make sure it's right. And then usually you'll have to italicize the book or the journal. The journal or the book will be italicized. The article will be in quotations. So here you see a in-text citation. So it's always the last name of the author and the page number. No comma here. Again, very, kind of anal. I don't really care if you have a comma there, but if you do, it's wrong. Some teachers might count off for that. Some teachers might fail you for that, I've heard. I've never encountered a teacher like that in Hawaii. But you must state your article up front and your author, and then if you have a website, let's say, that doesn't have a page number, you don't even need a citation because you've already stated the name and the article up front. So what is the point of all this, right? So you have the in-text citation, then you have your works cited, and you all must have a works cited page or I simply will not grade your paper in this final paper. I've let it go. Several people have forgotten, and pretty much all the assignments, you need it in the final paper. So here we have it, though. There's Danoff. So that's why we have the in-text citation, to know, like, if I want to look up that person, if I want to look up that work and check it, I just go right down here to the works cited page. Now notice they're all in alphabetical order. Every line after the first line is indented. More than 2 authors get et al. And that's also true in your in-text citation. Okay, here's one, Baker et al. So that has several authors' names. But then after that, it's just the page number, because we know this is still them. So this is just more citations from them. It's a 1-inch margin here. You can see the title. Very unaesthetically pleasing, in my opinion. Title, I would rather bold it. Double space. So going back to my work, I have my eyes, I really cannot do double space when I'm writing, but when I turn it in, I have to do double space. So my drafts aren't in double space, but I need to turn it in double space. I'm putting this in bold so I can see that it's a title, but you can see in here it's not bold. It's usually in caps, the subtitle. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So credible sources, just to make a couple comments. Yes, a peer-reviewed article is credible source, but let's not kid ourselves. Academia, just like anything else, has political views. It has bias. People that are friends are probably going to peer review each other's work, and people who might disagree with something that's not as trendy, they might not be able to get their work published. So I'm just saying this because this can be part of your analysis. Government sources, a lot of you are using government sources. And also statistics. Are they credible? Yes, but sometimes they're biased to the public in general, not individual needs. One person did a paper on plastic straws, and her opposition was that people who were disabled, sometimes they really needed those plastic straws. So in her argument, she said, well, maybe this should be an exception to the plastic straws, or maybe we can come up with a different type of straw. But in a government source, it might not reference those people that are not, the standard, whether it be health or other things, or people who just don't follow the standards. Statistics, often biased. So look at the groups. And of course, in your Getting Beneath the Buzzwords post, you guys did a great job, but some of you were still using buzzwords like liberal and Republican or conservative. If you shouldn't really be using those words in your paper, but if you do, you need to tell us what a liberal is and why and how it's applying to the research that you're talking about. But what I want you to do is get underneath those words and what really is forming those views, such as my one student who said it's economic, but economic can go both ways.
And then also, when you get my comments back, you should have gotten your paper attached to both resource 1 and resource 2 and 3. A couple people didn't get papers attached because I didn't need to write anything in the comments, but most people did. So make sure you read those comments, and if you don't correct what I pointed out in the comments, then that's gonna be a problem for the final paper. So make sure to go through that, and on both papers.